Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. New session, AI, Society, and Cognitive Neuroscience. I'm going to be your host today. And this morning, I'm Pascal. So for those who don't know me already, I'm originally from Switzerland. I'm now living in Montreal. I studied in physics up till master's, and then I did a PhD with Sujay at McGill in computational neuroscience. And now since 2 years, I'm working in an AI company where we're doing microscopy, basically trying to develop deep learning techniques for industrial microscopy applications. And today's session,
So, hi everyone, I'm Sujay, you probably know by now. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So, I grew up in Nepal. I did my high school here, and I moved to Canada to do my undergraduate in electrical engineering, like most of you, I think. During my master's in engineering, I got exposed to neuroscience, and that's when I met Pascal as well. He was starting his PhD in neuroscience, and I got really fascinated by it. So I decided to switch from applied sciences to basic science and did a PhD in neuroscience. So I finished my PhD last year, and after that I've been doing a postdoc in neuroscience, which means you just continue doing research. And I study memory right now, but I studied vision during my PhD, and so did Pascal. So I'm going to be talking about neuroscience mostly today, and Pascal will be talking about more social aspect of AI and machine learning in general. So let's hope that we'll have a productive day. Let's get started.
Okay. So I know this is morning, and it is the fourth day. Everyone is a bit tired, but it's the last day before you're going to go on vacation for one day. So I'm not feeling bad at all to work you hard. So let's just start. What is today's menu, if we manage to get to the next slide? So for the appetizer, we'll be talking about AI and society, which is what I'm going to be doing. Then we'll have a Momo session with Sujay, because that's his favorite food. And then in the afternoon, so we're going to break for lunch, and in the afternoon, we're going to try to look at some real-world challenges when you want to do AI and machine learning. And we'll finish it off with another session from Sujay, where he's going to be talking about the physiology in our cheese platter. And for the dessert, you're going to be working, which is basically we're going to do a lab, try to see a little bit, did we tell you anything useful today? So let's get started. That's for you, Taman. Un peu d'amuse-gueule. It's a French term, so it's a bit of an insight for Taman, which is to warm up your mouth. It's a French cuisine. You start with something a little bit sweet to open the course. And we're going to do this differently a little bit today. The reason that we're going to do this differently is you've been working your brains a lot in the past few days. There's been a lot of great lectures, a lot of theoretical work. But theory alone is never going to solve a problem. And that's why we wanted to have one session where we're going to talk a little bit more about why are we actually doing the things we do. And that, to my advantage, is not work that I can do. This is work that you have to do. So far, being in school is kind of a luxury thing, right? Because you sit down and you get to judge whether or not the person in front gave you something useful or not. But you kind of just the receiver, just like streaming. Oh yeah, sure, this I like, this I don't like, this I like, this I don't like. I'm not going to give you that because I'm lazy too. So I'm going to make you work. And the way we're going to do this is, if we want to talk about AI and society, right, we have to think a little bit about what are the motivations that bring us to do the things that we do, and we need to try to figure out a little bit what do we actually mean when we say there is a good application or a failed application. And we'll start that with a little bit of a complex engineering task, which is we're going to start with a group discussion. Now, before everyone jumps around and tries to look for their friends, we're not going to do any of that either. We're going to just use the seating that is here now because it's going to be chaos otherwise, right? So what I want you to do is just look around. We'll try to do groups between 4 and 6 people, okay? So the best way that I thought we could do this is in a seating arrangement like you see here, right? So you either make like 2 rows together, okay? So basically you work with the people just around behind you so that you make a compact group. So let's just look around fast, try to see a little bit, do you know where you fit in the room, who you might be working with? So just by a show of hands, very fast, how many of you know each other actually beforehand? Are you like quite familiar with the people around you? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, well, during the group activity we can do it. Okay, because it's always interesting. I mean, I think most of you are still in school, right? You're mostly studying. What you'll notice, what is very different if you go to grad school or if you go to work, is most problems are done in groups. And if you cannot work in a group, you're not being able to contribute basically to a project. It's a very important skill to be able to do proper group work. And that means also interacting with people that might not have your own point of view and that maybe don't have the same style of communication as you. So a way to get, so this is a bit of like project management kind of like guidelines on how you make effective group discussions. We're going to try to mimic some of this so that you get also some practical skills out of all of this. We have 6 roles that I defined for you, okay? And each one of you is going to be taking one role. And if you're a group of 4, then some people will basically take the 2 others and distribute them among yourselves. Now, the important thing to note is you don't have to stick to the role. It's not the only thing you do, but you are responsible to make sure that this role gets properly covered in the discussion, okay? So we'll have a note taker, just basically the person who makes sure that we remember something after we've done it, the timekeeper, person making sure that we don't just randomly talk for half an hour about our lunch, a facilitator, it's a difficult job where it's basically having to make sure that everyone gets to talk. And what you have to do to be a good facilitator is mainly be able to judge what are the characters of the people around you. Some of the people are quite quiet. You have to wait for them to say something. Some of the people are very loud. You have to kind of calm them down a little bit, say, let someone else say something from time to time, okay? And another thing of the facilitator is, let's keep on topic, because it's very easy, especially with conversations like that, to just go into 1,000 different directions. Then we have the explorer. It's the person to make sure that we are not only focused on one point of view, because in a group, it's very easy to have a kind of a closed mind which is, oh, everyone agrees, great, problem solved. But that just means that your small group has a common view. That doesn't mean that you explore the things from different areas. So the explorer makes sure, okay, but what about if we were to think about this way? How about we were to do it this way? And then there's the challenger. This is the person that no one likes in the end. Is the one saying all the time, well, but that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right. This is a bad argument. This is a bad argument. But this person, you should really value it. If you ever have a company or you run a project, make sure that you have a person like that. Because this is the person who's going to make sure that your project doesn't run into the wall by extreme optimism. Because we really like to think, when we do something, that our ideas are genius. It's always the best thing. But very few times does an idea actually, from its first point, actually go to inception in the way that we think. It's important to try to view different points and to challenge the assumptions that we make. Because otherwise, you're in your own echo chamber talking to yourself. And the last part is the presenter, is the person who's going to come up here and share with the other people. Because now we're talking in a group of 6, right? But the other people might want to know a little bit what you come up with. So this is the things that we're going to do. Now, what are the questions that we want to have? So one thing that I'm kind of interested, and I think it's very important when you do any activity, is to think about what is actually your own personal motivation for doing it. And this is not a judgmental thing. It's really just, I'm here to do something, right? And I hope you didn't just wander into the door randomly and figure out I'm going to sit down here. You came here, you have a purpose, you want to get something out of it. What is it? Then I want to transition a little bit about really talking about AI and society. So in your own view, what is to you the purpose or the objective of society pursuing AI altogether, right? We're spending 10 days here in beautiful Nepal to discuss about techniques and about algorithms, but why are we doing this? What is the point of it? The third point is, let's say we figure out what the point is, or we don't figure out and we do it anyway, and we still want to try to do it well, right? So if you want to do an application, we want to try to figure out what makes an application successful. And at the same time, we also want to know what is a failed application, so that we don't have to reproduce the same errors 100 times. And then as kind of a bonus, this is not something you have to share right away, or not everyone has to kind of come up with something like this, but if you have any real-world applications that you're interested in looking at from different points of view that have some ethical ramifications, and you want to discuss that this is basically going to be the lab tonight. So to discuss, take an application, form groups of people who are interested to talk about it, and try to look really like tear it apart. Try to see, okay, is this a good idea? Would this work? Could we do this, and in what way? So if you have an idea like that, you have a project that you care about, that you want to do, that's the moment to kind of bring it in. And then just as a small note at the bottom, like disclaimer, please try to think about AI a little bit, not in a very futuristic sense, not something that is actually doable today, but don't limit yourself to thinking about machine learning techniques. So basically, it's about the application, not about the algorithm, right? When you talk about it, try to keep that in mind. Are we good with this? Okay, so let's see how good engineers you are. Let's make the groups.
I just wanted to mention something. As we go forward during the day, there's going to be some new concepts that you will study. And if at all, if it would help to for you to understand it in Nepali, I'm happy to speak to you in Nepali or Hindi. Pascal can speak French, but I don't know if anyone wants French. So just feel free to speak in whatever language you're comfortable with, and if we can, we'll accommodate that. Sorry, no Filipino.
Okay, so let's try to do this. I would start from the back, because the front rows can actually sit like this. Because as far as I remember, I counted 11 rows, so it's not going to fit. So let's start from the back, make the groups, and assign each other. I'm sure everyone is old enough to figure out a buddy to work with.
So I'm presenter of the first group here. I had a group of 8 amazing people. We discussed for about half an hour, and I'm with the output. So the first question was, what was our motivation for joining this winter school? So what we ended up discussing was, almost all of the people in my group were undergraduate students, and we were doing AI-related projects at school. So the first motivation was to understand about the concept of AI. So in our university, we were taught that AI is a kind of black box tool, but we learned that it can be optimized up to a while. So there is some way to understand what those black box tools does. So we are mostly motivated to understand the structures of those tools and utilizing those tools to harvest.
Okay, guys, listen to the people. They take the time to come up front and explain it.
So that we can develop tools that can solve mankind. So that was our real motivation to join this school. The second question was the objectives and purpose of AI. So mostly what we ended up in discussing was that AI was made to mimic human intelligence. So when human brain is so powerful that there have been various attempts to understand how it works. There is cognitive science and many other fields. So mostly currently what we are trying to do is like to emulate the human intelligence. So using the AI artifact, what we are trying to do is, as an objective, we are trying to beat the human intelligence. Like it playing chess, currently machine has already beat the best human doers, and in Google also there is a lot of progress going on. So we believe that with AI we'll be able to beat the humans in various fields. So we can make artifacts that can beat human intelligence in the future. So using AI, we can also bring a lot of revolution in the way we do things, like in industries and other things as well, like in driving, using self-driving cars and autonomous drivings. So the third question was, what constitutes in your mind as a successful application of AI? And this is the part we mostly discussed on. So we went through a lot of applications of AI, including Siri, Alexa, that is audio speech processing, Tesla's for self-driving cars, facial recognition and sentiment analysis, recommendation systems, and bioinformatics, image processing, superhuman doctors, business intelligence, and optimizations. So we went through a lot of applications of AI that we found useful. And the fourth question was about the field application of AI. So this was the most complicated part for us. So what we ended up discussing was AI, the failures in AI is worth a failure because there has been a lot of successful applications from that failures. For example, we can take a car crash failure of Google. So although the car crashed, we have been able to learn a lot of things which can be used to tune the performance in the future. Likewise, we went through some examples of using AI to control the thermal controller of nuclear power plants. So that is a very sensitive area of application. So there have been a lot of failure in trying to do such projects. So we discussed that in this section. So mostly the failures were due to lack of precision and the ability to understand the context of the application. Like it was applied to field where the training data was not available and the output was not as expected. So
okay, thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Abhishek, and for the first question, personal motivation. 3 of my teammates were industry professionals. They've been working on problems, some of them working on AI problems, some of them not on AI problems. Their objective on coming here to the winter school was to get started on exploring AI and to continue their work after this on exploring AI and ML applications. And one of them was a student who's working on AI applications applied to biological fields, and another one from Philippines who's worried about the data available in for researchers in bioinformatics not being available for people from Philippines, but the data being available only for the developed countries like US or Canada. That is because the number of researchers are concentrated in more of the developed countries like the US or Canada. So it is pretty important for research in AI and ML to spread to less developed countries like India and Nepal. And that was my motivation of coming here, to understand how NAMI started, how an organization like this started, so that students in these less developed countries can also start getting on to research in AI and ML. And the second question was the general objective of AI. Xavier, students from Philippines, his idea of a successful application, I mean, the general objective of AI was to solve complex problems like drug discovery or genome sequencing. These were problems that humanity has found it really difficult to tackle over the course of years. But AI and ML have given us possible solutions or methods to tackle these problems. And the others were interested in problems that could develop a human-centered AI approach. So basically, you want an AI that can understand humans and can recommend stuff that can make humanity progress as a civilization. So that is what interests me as well. That AI should be something that unifies people. And so, for example, humans can have an inherent bias. Let me give you an example. So in Google Translate, if you try she is a doctor, you translate that to, say, Nepali, it would give you the Nepali version of she is a doctor. You take that Nepali term, and if you try converting it back to English, it would come out as he is a doctor. This is because the data that it used to train it saw that doctors were mostly male and nurses were mostly female. So this is a bias that we humans mostly have. So this can have profound impact when it is applied to production scale applications. So for example, when you are applying on a financial investment risk management system, then you would see that people who are black or a particular section of the society should not be given a loan. You would extend stuff like that. Basically, you are amplifying the bias that humans have. So AI has a tendency to do that. So a failed application of AI should be, I mean, a failed application of AI would be something that does that kind of stuff. So it is crucial for AI to be fair and make it a level playing field for humans across the globe. And another interesting application for the bonus point. So I had this idea of an online teacher. So all of us are students attending the same course and same lecture, and you're going to have some doubts or questions that you would not feel like asking in the class, and there's only so many questions that you can ask during a class hour. But internet and social media give you a platform to connect with people outside of class. So it could be a platform where you can share things that you read and that you found really interesting, and you could have a recommendation system that parses the web or finds out other resources that you can read and that could recommend you things that you can read before class, after class. So basically like an online teacher which can give you the correct kind of feed. It could recommend the kind of material. So I think that kind of a material being online, it could be accessible by everyone. And I think it can make for a more level playing field so that AI can end up being an inclusive, AI research is more inclusive, and so that there is diversity in the number of researchers who are working on AI. So the aim of this Nepal Winter School itself is to make sure that some of you who are from the less developed countries could also engage in research so that you would tackle problems that you know are prevalent in your country. So yeah, so that's...
Thank you.
So, apparently in our team, all of the 4 members we had were all professionals. So we had worked on some ML projects, AI projects. So the reason that we came for the winter school was to know where we stand on a theoretical basis versus what we do in the practical knowledge. So we use tools to solve the problems, but doing so kind of takes away the theoretical knowledge, what's being updated and not. So that was one of the main reasons to know where we stand. Also, another was networking. Know people from the community, the speakers. So that was also another reason why most of us, all of us, kind of came to the AI Winter School. So going to the general objectives of AI, what we think is an AI should be able to shift the task from what we do and automate it. And it's kind of mimicking our behavior to solve the problems. But in doing so, we kind of feel that it should stick to what it is made to do. So that is what we think a successful AI, general purpose of AI is to help us do the tasks that can be automated, that we need not think about the trivial tasks. So our discussion was a bit different. We didn't kind of focus on the specific topics, but as a whole, we discussed on the bad side, good side, and the ethical side as well. So for a successful application of AI, we narrowed down to 2 things. One is the recommendation system, and another was genome sequencing assisted project, I will say that. So recommendation systems. So recommendation systems help us narrow down things that we want. So instead of searching a whole day for what we need, we can basically do the same task in around half an hour to 1 hour. So that drastically reduces our work, and we have time to think about other things as well. And regarding the genome sequencing, one of our member was interested in medical field, so he told about that there was a project where the biologist was almost out of options, but using AI, what he couldn't do in 5 years, he completed that in a single year. So that's a man's 5 years worth of research was assisted by an AI and completed in a year. So that is 6 years of project work was completed by AI. So that is what I can say is a successful application of AI. Going back to the failed application, I will again say that a recommendation system is a failed application of AI. Because, for example, when we use Facebook, we are suggested different groups that we are interested in. What that does is that creates a bubble around us, and we do not go out of the perspective that what we might explore. So recommendation systems kind of are a good thing, but they're also the bad thing. One of the general news that we are hearing about is fake news. So that is also created by recommendation systems. So that brings us to the last bonus point about the ethical. Because as we as a group said, recommendation engines are good, but they are also bad. So from what we think, what kind of data is being used, who is governing the system, are some of the things that we must think to make the AI as a successful product or a failed product. So that's our perspective. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you.
So we had a very diverse people in our group. So two were students of physics, and one is Sujay sir himself. And I had a very background of running a sizable company in Nepal. So in terms of motivation, so the two students had a very concrete motivation of learning machine learning techniques and applying them in their respective fields in statistical and medical physics. I and Sujay sir had a very little bit opposite kind of in the same domain objective. So he really wanted to provide world-class education to to Nepalese people so that people don't go abroad. And I'm from the other end. I came back, and I want to use that knowledge so that I can solve world-class problems by staying in Nepal. So it's a very interesting objective we had. So the other question was general objective and purpose of AI. I think is in general we discussed about like solving complex problems that involve human behavior that normally cannot be solved by simple algorithms. We also talked about in science, especially, it's all about prediction and generating better results. And Sujay sir basically talked about like understanding human intelligence here and really addressing societal problems and also making science accessible to everybody. Like really democratize this science in even countries like, a little bit poor countries like Nepal and even in villages of Nepal. So successful application of AI, again in science, we talked about bionic arms and cancer treatments and discovery of objects in space. For me, as coming from a business background, it's really about like getting rid of all the boring jobs in business or in work and really spending most of the time in innovative and creative initiatives. And we also talked about solving really big societal problems like we have pollution, we have like, how to increase, how to basically get more crops from the same resources we have, and also cure a lot of diseases, especially in developing world as well. The other one is the failed application. We talked about like how AI is being used as a black box solution, basically using a sledgehammer to crack nuts. So even I've seen in a lot of business applications, everybody is really going after AI and machine learning, but a lot of these problems are very simple and just require some intuition, some basic, problem solving. Yeah, this is the main thing we talked about. And one thing Sujay sir really surprised me is that he said that, self-driving cars are a pretty failed application. I think we'd like to discuss a little bit more about it because I was thinking the other way. But yeah, so this is all we discussed.
I want to join in that debate.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys want to? So I've been hearing very great things so far and very diverse motivations. I'm
Very impressive.
yeah, very impressed.
Namaste. I'm representing my group here. So most of our group are undergraduate students. So the main motivation for joining this winter school of AI is actually to understand this most trending and fastest developing field of machine learning. And as most of us are from electronics background, our main objective is to apply the machine learning in robotics and automation, mostly reinforcement learning. As our environment is so variable that it's so hard to like model the whole environment in a single mathematical formula. So it's good to use the machine learning as a black box for the automation. And another application that we found very exciting is to understand our almighty mind. Whatever we have, whatever we take, whatever we know, the way our brain works, we take it all for granted. We don't really care about how our brain works, and we just think it's granted for us. But when we try to model our brain in actual computation and actual programming, it's so much hard. So as machine learning, we can do it a bit further more, as we have different fields like neural networks and genetic recombination, so we can model our brains. Okay, so objectives and purpose of AI. The main objectives of any invention or any discoveries is, of course, to ease the human life. Okay, so from the age of civilization of human beings, we have automated everything. We have automated our human power, all the muscle activities, but the only thing that's remaining to be automated is the human mind. So as AI can do that, and of course it's a step forward to ease the human life. And another difference between a man and human is that man and AI, machine is, our brain is so much good at intelligence and the machine is so much good at computing. So if you can combine the computation power of the machine and the intelligence, then of course it can give a bit better result. Okay, the third question, what's in your mind a successful application of AI? Okay, so the first successful application of AI that we expect is general AI, the single AI that can do anything, that can answer any question. Like we have specific AI for medical purpose, and specific AI for computing the engineering problems. So if there could be a general AI that can be used for computing the medical knowledge and also the computation of the physics and all, and it's a general AI. And another application that we found most interesting is the emotional aspect. I think it's so hard for modeling the emotions of human behaviors into the formula. But if you can use the AI to read the human emotions, then it will be better. Okay, the fourth question is was a failed application of AI. Artificial intelligence is so much accurate, but not 100% accurate. So it cannot be used. It can still be used in a very much sensitive aspects, such as diagnosing disease in hospitals, and moreover, AI can also be used in power distribution system to predict the future power demands and the load scheduling. But if the AI cannot predict it properly, then it can cause the blackout, and it can, of course, affect the hospitals and all. That's all. Thank you.
Very optimistic group.
Yeah, unexpected, I think. I didn't expect to get that many great answers. So now I'm going to have a problem, because now I have to talk again. And we have to somehow bring all of this together. So the way that I would maybe propose that we do this is you're looking at a more theoretical lens, maybe that I'm stealing from Sinek. It's just a view of basically how are we actually looking at these things. So there's a lot of different things that were proposed today, and thank you, Sujay, for trying to list some of them. I think it would be a good idea if we can collect the notes somehow and put them together. I think it would make a very interesting repository of points of views, and maybe we can see how they evolve through time as well. So I would propose to say that one of the first and simplest thing that we can approach a problem is to know what is being done. And I think from all the groups, it seems pretty obvious. Then I kind of expected also that you know what you're doing and why, basically what you're doing here. The second level of looking at a problem is often then to understand how something is done. So you can know what you want to do, and then you need to know the how, right? And this also means, in a certain extent, what is special about that solution. And a lot of what you're doing at the school here is basically learning that, right? So we're learning techniques, we're learning to where they apply, how are they used, can they be used different from others, and what are the advantages of this. But one of the things that we very rarely see is the question about why we do the things that we do. And it's interesting when we listen a little bit to the things that come up. So there is a lot of people who have put some thought into this, but we have to see that a lot of the answers, they still are more around what is AI doing and how is it doing it, than why are we as a collective actually doing this. And there's actually a simple reason for this, is what and how are, we can say, an objective and sort of process question. And why is a completely different class, basically. In why deals with purpose, it deals with belief. And it basically asks us to think of the problem very differently. So one of the examples that Sinex always brings is a company, they know what they do. Pretty much anyone knows what the company does. They're selling some products, it does sell some services. A good company would usually also know how it does it, like why is it able to sell those services and products, what makes them different from the rest. But only very few know why they're actually doing it. And a lot of people will get answers like, to make money. But making money is not a purpose. Making money is a side effect. And a lot of the things that we've been talking about are also not purposes. They're side effects of applying the technology. But this is not the same thing as knowing what's the purpose behind it. And if we're not going to go grapple with this, we're going to just end up with a bunch of applications that don't do anything, basically. It's going to be a complete mess in the end, because the meaning of all of it comes only together if it's some sort of coherent purpose behind it. So I would want to say, leave you with something like this. It's the conventional route of approaching problems when you want to do something is usually to go from what, and then to how, and then to why. But if you want to be an effective problem solver, you really want to do something, start with why. Really try to dig, why am I doing this? What am I trying to achieve? And then how and what are going to follow pretty naturally out of it. So if we take this, and we go back again to this question of why AI, and we try to ask a little bit about what is the purpose of this pursuit, I kind of expected that you guys would say things like this. That's like to have an agent that can interact within some bounds with humans without humans having a direct control over it, building an agent that has an intelligence which may be comparable to or larger to the one of humans. And if you want to generalize that, is basically making an agent that's able to learn to generalize from data and engage in whatever we mean by intelligent problem-solving behavior, right? Now, we'll have a few problems with that, because first of all, we don't know what intelligence means, and we don't really know what learning means and how it works. And you can hope that maybe Sujay is going to explain some of that in the afternoon. But I would say even those are, again, more what answers than why. When we ask why, and we've seen this in a few of the answers here, right? People usually will retreat into something like the betterment of humankind, which is obviously a lofty goal, right? This is great. I think we can all stand behind that. But I'm not that sure that we can all agree on what that actually means. And this is what basically the issue a little bit with those questions are. Words like purpose and goals, they're extremely human concepts. They're not things that exist in nature. They're not things that exist objectively outside of us. They exist in the community, they exist for individuals, but you need humans to have purpose and goals. Probably other animals maybe have purpose and goals too, but they'll be completely different for us, and they would have a completely different way of conceptualizing that, right? So if we accept this, we will know also that there cannot be a general purpose. I think someone actually even mentioned that. So instead, it's always going to be, whatever development of technology we're going to be doing is going to be guided by a certain set of values, a certain set of beliefs. And in short, that's what we call basically in social science, they would call that a value-laden question. So a question that has values embedded into it. And so yeah, basically what does that actually mean is that it is whatever framing or answering of a question that has values contained is value-laden. And in a certain sense, that's it. We can simplify it to say it's a little bit not objective. It's what we often will call a subjective perspective. And it also implies that when you want to answer value-laden questions, there is a certain trade-off that you have to do between different things. There's certain things that you value, other things that you value less, and you'll have to weigh those. So why does it matter to actually think about this when we think about technology and AI and ML in particular, is that most interesting applications that you guys mentioned, they operate at the boundary between technology and society, right? They're not just technological applications. And what that means is that actually most of these applications, they're inherently political. So there is an organization of society, it transforms society. It has a political component to do that, and that makes you intrinsically morally responsible for doing what you do. So you cannot just run away and say, I'm just doing algorithms, and then not worry about what's going to happen after. People who develop things are also responsible to some extent on how these things get used, because you can choose what you build and what you don't build. So if we assume, and I think it's a pretty fair assumption, most of the people are interested in making good AI applications, without going too much in depth about what we mean by good, but somehow they have ingrained things like fairness and unbiasedness that are inherent in those. And the challenge now is to figure out how can we operationalize these things? So basically, how do we go from these words, big words like betterment of humankind, fair, unbiased, to actual terms you can use? Because you cannot go on Python and say, TensorFlow, please be fair. This doesn't work, right? There is no such thing. So we need to have ways. Do we embed it in a loss function? What do we do? And we're going to talk a lot about these things in the afternoon. In practice, what are actually the challenges there? So before we break for lunch, I want to leave you with a little bit of a teaser, because we're in the appetizer session, right? So we need to open the stomach for the big food. I want to make you play a little game to show you what value-laden actually means. So for people of computers or phones, just go to this website and go to at the bottom of the page and click Start Judging, okay? What the game is going to be about is you're in front of a situation, is that there is a self-driving car which has a brake failure, okay? And you always have to choose between two situations. And you have to basically tell, if you were to program the car, which of the two situations should it choose, okay? You click on below here at the bottom, you have like a show description, then you'll see the description of it. So there's 13 questions, and at the end, you're going to get a sort of a breakdown on what kind of things you've chosen, okay? So basically, you just start judging, and then you can click on one situation or the other to figure out which is the one that that seems fairer to you or more ethical. So let's try to do that.